Have you ever looked at the news and felt like you're watching history repeat itself? Well, what if I told you that today's headlines might have been written 2,500 years ago? We're about to dive into a source that makes a really fascinating claim, that the tensions we see right now between Israel and Iran are actually the unfolding of an ancient, very specific, and frankly, terrifying prophecy.
So let's just jump right into the big question the source material puts on the table. Is it possible that the conflict we're seeing in the Middle East, the missile strikes, the constant talk of war, is all part of a script written millennia ago? It's a wild idea that tries to draw a straight line from our world today right back to the ancient past. To give you a feel for the tone here, our main source for this, a video from The Bible Tales, describes the prophecy just like this. They zero in on this feeling of mystery and, more importantly, precision. They claim it's so detailed that it's puzzled scholars for centuries, all of them wondering, okay, so when is this actually going to happen? Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is around 593 BCE. The nation of Israel has been completely destroyed, and its people have been dragged off into exile in Babylon. And it's here, in the middle of all that despair, that a prophet named Ezekiel starts receiving these incredible visions about the future. Now, at the heart of all this is what's known as the prophecy of Gog of Magog. It's this super detailed vision of a massive future invasion of Israel. And this invasion is led by a mysterious leader named Gog, who comes from a land called Magog. So the big question is, according to the source, who on earth are these people today?
Right. So this is where we get into the detective work. The key to understanding the source's whole argument is decoding the ancient names that Ezekiel lists in his writings. They argue this isn't just some vague prediction of a war. No, it's a specific list of players in a future conflict.
See, Ezekiel doesn't just name the main leader, Gog. He actually lists the entire alliance that's going to march alongside him. And the source claims that when you translate these ancient names into modern countries, well, a pretty startling picture starts to emerge.
And here it is. This slide shows the exact map the source lays out. It identifies Magog, Meshech, and Tubal with, you guessed it, Russia and that whole Central Asia region. Now, Persia, that's a direct hit. It's modern-day Iran, which was literally called Persia until 1935. Then you've got Kush, which they link to Sudan and Ethiopia. Put is linked to Libya, and Gomer and Beth Togarmah are connected to Turkey. Suddenly, you're looking at a very, very modern-looking alliance.
And there's another key detail the source points out, a geographical one. The text says the invasion comes from the uttermost north. And if you pull out a map and draw a straight line directly north from Jerusalem, you land squarely in Russia.
But here's the thing. According to the source, for any of this to even be possible, one absolutely massive, seemingly impossible thing had to happen first. The prophecy itself had a prerequisite. Before this big invasion could ever take place, the people of Israel had to be back in their homeland. This verse, written by Ezekiel while he was in exile, predicted a future where his people would be regathered from all over the world. For almost 2,000 years, that idea just seemed completely impossible.
This timeline really puts it all into perspective. Ezekiel writes this around 593 BCE. Then, for nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people are scattered everywhere. And then, boom, May 1948, the nation of Israel is reborn. The source presents this historic event not as just some coincidence, but as the fulfillment of that critical condition, setting the stage for everything else. So, with Israel back on the map and this prophesied alliance seemingly taking shape in our headlines, the source then turns to the invasion itself, why it happens, how it goes down, and its dramatic, totally unexpected ending. So why would this alliance attack? The prophecy is pretty blunt. They come to seize, spoil, and capture plunder. It's about greed. The source connects this ancient motive to modern-day realities, pointing to Israel's booming tech industry, and, maybe even more importantly, the recent discoveries of massive natural gas reserves right off its coast. So, the invasion happens. Israel is completely surrounded. According to the text, no other country comes to help. But just when it seems like all is lost, the prophecy describes this sudden, dramatic turning point. It isn't another army that saves the day. It's a direct, supernatural intervention.
The aftermath is laid out in 3 powerful stages. First, the invading armies are just annihilated. The text talks about pestilence, fire, hailstones, and a great earthquake. Second, the scale of the destruction is so insane that the cleanup is a huge job. The prophecy says it will take 7 years just to burn the leftover weapons for fuel and 7 months to bury the dead. And third, the whole point of it is made crystal clear. It's a global event meant to reveal divine power.
Think about that for a second. 7 years. The source really emphasizes this number to show the sheer volume of weapons left behind by the defeated army. Enough stuff to use as fuel for a whole nation for the better part of a decade.
And then there's the other 7. 7 months. An entire period of time dedicated just to cleansing the land by burying the dead. The prophecy uses these really stark numbers to drive home the unbelievable human cost of this conflict. Now, the source material makes a really important distinction here. This war of Gog and Magog gets confused all the time with another famous biblical battle, Armageddon, but the source argues they are 2 totally separate events. Okay, so here's the key difference. The Gog and Magog War is a specific invasion of Israel by a particular alliance, and God defeats them supernaturally. Armageddon, on the other hand, is described as this massive global conflict where all the nations gather against God, and it ends with the personal return of Jesus Christ. The source suggests the Gog and Magog War could be a precursor, like a major warning shot before the final battle. So with all this talk of war and terrifying events, what's the big takeaway supposed to be? According to the source, the message actually isn't about fear. They point to this verse from the New Testament, suggesting that these kinds of signs are meant to be seen as a reason for hope, a sign that a promised redemption is on its way. Ultimately, the Bible Tales video frames this whole prophecy not as some geopolitical forecast to make everyone panic, but more as a spiritual call to action. It's a reason to get your life in order and focus on faith in a world that they'd argue is getting more and more chaotic. And that really brings us to the conclusion of this whole fascinating interpretation, a story that stretches across millennia, connecting an ancient text to the world we are literally living in today. So, to wrap it all up, the central claim from the source is this. The alliances we see forming on the world stage right now, specifically involving Russia, Iran, and Turkey, look uncannily like the coalition described by the prophet Ezekiel over 2,500 years ago. And so, this explainer of the source material doesn't end with a prediction or a date. It ends with a question that shifts the whole focus away from global events and puts it right back on you, on personal reflection. In light of this ancient prophecy and today's headlines, the source basically asks its audience to think about what it all means for them personally.